The lantern's glow caught the curve of a woman's shoulder beneath his best horse blanket, and Xavier Garrett froze in the doorway of his barn, his hand instinctively moving to the revolver at his hip. It was August of 1878, and Silver City, New Mexico Territory, had been experiencing an influx of drifters and troublemakers for the past several months. Xavier had worked too hard building his ranch from nothing to let his guard down now, even if the intruder appeared to be sound asleep in a pile of fresh hay. He approached slowly, his boots making soft sounds against the packed earth floor. The woman stirred at his approach, and when her eyes opened, they were the most striking shade of green he had ever seen, wide with fear and exhaustion. "Please do not shoot," she said, her voice hoarse and trembling. She sat up slowly, the blanket falling away to reveal a torn and dirty dress that might have once been a respectable traveling outfit. Her dark auburn hair had mostly escaped its pins and hung in tangled waves around her face. "I know I should not be here. I am sorry." Xavier kept his hand near his weapon but did not draw it. "You are trespassing on private property. This is my barn." "I know. I am sorry," she repeated, and he could see tears forming in those green eyes. "Please, I just need just one night to rest, and I will be gone by morning. I promise you will never see me again." There was something in her voice, a desperation that went beyond ordinary fatigue. Xavier studied her more carefully in the lamplight. She was young, probably in her early 20s, and despite the dirt and exhaustion, he could see she was beautiful. But more than that, he could see she was terrified. "Where did you come from?" he asked, his tone softening slightly. She hesitated, her fingers clutching the blanket. "I walked from the main road. I saw your barn from the ridge and I just could not go any further, my feet." She trailed off, and Xavier noticed for the first time that her shoes were in tatters, and there were dark stains on her stockings that looked like blood. "Who are you running from?" Her eyes widened further, confirming his suspicion. "How did you know?" "A woman does not walk alone through New Mexico Territory in the middle of the night and sleep in a stranger's barn unless she is running from something, or someone." She looked down at her hands. "My husband. My former husband, I should say. I left him 3 days ago in Santa Fe." Xavier felt his jaw tighten. He had seen enough in his 32 years to know what a woman running from her husband usually meant. "Did he hurt you?" "That is not your concern," she said quietly. "I just need one night of rest and then I will be out of your way. I will not be any trouble." Xavier made a decision that he knew might complicate his life considerably. "Come up to the house. You can clean up and get a proper meal." She shook her head quickly. "No, I cannot impose like that. The barn is fine, more than fine. I am grateful just for the shelter." "I am not leaving a woman to sleep in my barn when I have a perfectly good house with a spare room," Xavier said firmly. "Besides, if your husband is looking for you, the barn is the first place anyone would check." This logic seemed to reach her, because she slowly stood up, wincing as her damaged feet took her weight. Xavier noticed her sway slightly, and he moved forward instinctively to steady her. When his hand touched her arm, she flinched, and he pulled back immediately. "I will not hurt you," he said gently. "My name is Xavier Garrett. This is my ranch, and you are welcome to stay as long as you need to." She looked at him with confusion and suspicion. "Why would you help me? You do not even know me." "Do I need a reason to help someone in trouble?" "In my experience, men always want something in return." Xavier felt a flash of anger, not at her, but at whatever had happened to make her so distrustful. "Well, I am not like the men you have known. Now, can you walk, or do you need help?" She took a tentative step and nearly collapsed. Xavier caught her before she fell, this time not letting go despite her stiffening. "Put your arm around my shoulder," he instructed. "The house is not far." I do not even know if I should tell you my name, she said as they slowly made their way out of the barn. If anyone comes looking, it would be better if you could honestly say you did not know who I was. Fair enough, Xavier said, but I need to call you something. She was quiet for a moment. Catherine, you can call me Catherine. They made their way across the yard to the ranch house, a sturdy structure Xavier had built himself over the past 5 years. It was not fancy, but it was solid and comfortable, with 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a main room with a fireplace. He helped Catherine inside and settled her into a chair at the kitchen table. "Let me get the stove going and heat some water," he said. "You need to get those feet cleaned and bandaged before infection sets in." Catherine watched him move around the kitchen with practiced efficiency. "You are not married." "No," Xavier said simply, "but you cook." "I have been living alone for 5 years. It was either learn to cook or starve." He set a pot of water on the stove and began gathering supplies. "There is a tub in the back room. Once the water is hot, you can take a proper bath. I will leave some clean clothes outside the door. They will be too big, but better than what you are wearing now." "You are being very kind to a stranger," Catherine said softly. Xavier paused in his preparations and looked at her. "Maybe I just believe people deserve kindness, especially when they are at their lowest." Catherine's eyes filled with tears again, and this time she did not try to hide them. "Thank you." Over the next hour, Xavier heated water, helped Catherine to the back room where the tub was located and left her with soap, clean towels, and a set of his own clothes. While she bathed, he prepared a simple meal of beans, cornbread, and coffee. He also gathered bandages and salve for her feet. When Catherine emerged from the back room, she looked transformed. Her hair was wet and combed back from her face, and despite swimming in his oversized shirt and pants, she looked more human and less like a frightened animal. She sat down at the table without being asked, and Xavier noticed she was moving more carefully as though every muscle ached. "Eat first," he said, setting a plate in front of her. "Then we will take care of your feet." Catherine ate slowly at first, then with increasing hunger as though she had not had a proper meal in days. Xavier sat across from her with his own plate, giving her space but staying close enough to help if she needed it. "How long since you ate?" he asked. 2 days, she admitted. "I had a little money when I left, but I was afraid to stop anywhere populated. I bought some bread from a farmer's wife yesterday morning, but that was the last of my money." "Where were you heading?" Catherine looked down at her plate. "I did not really have a plan. I just knew I had to leave Santa Fe. I thought maybe I could find work somewhere, start over." "What kind of work?" "I can read and write. I can keep accounts. I am decent with a needle. I know it is not much, but I thought maybe I could find a position as a housekeeper or a teacher." Xavier nodded slowly. "Silver City could use a school teacher. The last one left 6 months ago to get married, and the children have been without proper education since then." Catherine's eyes lit up slightly. "Really? Really? Though you would need to speak to the town council about it, and they would want references." The light in her eyes dimmed. "I do not have any references, and I cannot contact anyone from my old life. If my husband found out where I was, is he that determined to find you?" Catherine's hands tightened around her coffee cup. "He is not the type of man who accepts being left. He will see it as a personal insult, a challenge to his authority, and he has friends, people who owe him favors. I need to disappear completely." Xavier considered this. "What is your full name?" "Your real name?" She hesitated for a long moment. "Catherine Jensen. My husband was Marcus Jensen. He owns a hotel in Santa Fe." "I have heard that name," Xavier said slowly. "He has investments in mining operations around the territory." "Yes." "He is wealthy and well-connected, which is part of why I am so afraid. He has the resources to search for me." Why did you marry him? Catherine's laugh was bitter. The usual reason. My parents died when I was 19 and I had no way to support myself. Marcus was a friend of my father's and he offered marriage. I was grateful at first. I thought he was kind. She paused, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. I was very wrong. Xavier did not press for details. He had seen the flinch when he touched her arm, the way she held herself as though expecting a blow. He did not need to hear the specifics to know what kind of man Marcus Jensen was. You are safe here, he said firmly. And you can stay as long as you need to, not just one night. Catherine looked up at him with surprise. I cannot ask that of you. If Marcus finds out you helped me, he could make trouble for you. Let him try, Xavier said with quiet confidence. This is my land and I do not answer to anyone. Now let me see those feet. Reluctantly, Catherine extended her legs and Xavier knelt beside her chair to examine the damage. Her feet were torn and blistered, caked with dried blood despite the bath. He worked gently, cleaning the wounds with warm water and applying salve before wrapping them in clean bandages. You will need to stay off these for a few days, he said. They are pretty badly damaged. I do not have a few days, Catherine protested. I need to keep moving. You are not going anywhere on those feet, Xavier said firmly. You would not make it a mile before you collapsed. Give yourself time to heal. Catherine looked torn between gratitude and fear. What if he comes looking here? Then we will deal with it, Xavier said simply. But running yourself into the ground will not help anything. You need rest, proper food, and time for your feet to heal. Then we can figure out what comes next. Catherine studied his face for a long moment, as though trying to determine if she could trust him. Whatever she saw there must have reassured her because she finally nodded. Just a few days. Then I will go. We will see, Xavier said, standing up and returning to his chair. For now, finish your dinner and then you should get some sleep. You look exhausted. I am, Catherine admitted. I have barely slept since I left. After they finished eating, Xavier showed Catherine to the spare bedroom. It was simple but clean, with a comfortable bed and a window that looked out over the mountains. He brought her an extra quilt and made sure she had everything she needed. Thank you, Catherine said from the doorway. Truly. I know I keep saying it, but I mean it. You did not have to help me. Maybe not, Xavier agreed. But I wanted to. Get some rest, Catherine. Tomorrow you can start healing. Xavier retired to his own room, but sleep did not come easily. He lay awake thinking about the frightened woman in his spare room and the husband who was probably searching for her. He thought about the way she had flinched from his touch, the fear in her eyes, the desperation that had driven her to walk for 3 days with bleeding feet. Something protective had awakened in him the moment he saw her in his barn, something that went beyond simple compassion for a stranger in need. He barely knew her, but he was already prepared to stand between her and anyone who wanted to hurt her. The next morning, Xavier woke early as always, dressed quietly, and went to start his daily chores. He checked on the horses, fed the chickens, and milked the cow before returning to the house to make breakfast. He was surprised to find Catherine already awake, sitting at the kitchen table in the clothes he had lent her, her bandaged feet propped up on a second chair. You should still be in bed, he said. I could not sleep anymore, Catherine admitted. And I felt strange lying in bed while you were working. Can I help with anything? You can sit there and keep me company while I make breakfast, Xavier said. That is all the help I need from you right now. He made eggs, bacon, and biscuits, and they ate together as the morning sun streamed through the kitchen window. Catherine seemed more relaxed than she had the night before, though Xavier noticed she still started at sudden noises. Tell me about your ranch, she said. How long have you been here? 5 years, Xavier said. I came to New Mexico Territory in 1873 with nothing but a horse and what money I had saved working cattle drives in Texas. I bought this land cheap because the previous owner could not make a go of it. Spent the first year just building the house and barn, getting the water situation sorted out. Started with a small herd of cattle and built from there. That must have been difficult doing it all alone. It was, Xavier admitted, but I liked the challenge. I liked knowing that everything I built was mine, that I did it with my own hands and did not owe anyone anything. That must be a good feeling, Catherine said wistfully. I have never had that. I went from my father's house to my husband's house, always dependent on someone else. You do not have to be dependent anymore, Xavier said. You left. That took courage, or desperation, Catherine said quietly. I am not sure there is much difference. They spent the rest of the morning talking. Xavier learned that Catherine was 23 years old, originally from St. Louis, and had moved to Santa Fe with her parents when she was 16. Her father had been a doctor, and her mother had been a seamstress. Both had died of cholera within days of each other, leaving Catherine alone and penniless. Marcus Jensen had seemed like a blessing at the time, a stable, respectable man offering marriage and security. He did not show his true nature until after we were married, Catherine explained. At first, it was just small things. He did not like the way I arranged the furniture. He did not like my friends. He wanted to control every aspect of my life, from what I wore to what I ate to when I slept, and if I did not comply. She trailed off, and Xavier did not need her to finish. How long were you married? 3 years. 3 years of walking on eggshells, trying not to set him off. It got worse over time. He became convinced I was unfaithful, even though I never gave him any reason to think that. He started locking me in the house, controlling all the money, monitoring everyone I spoke to. She took a shaky breath. 2 weeks ago, he hit me hard enough that I saw stars, and I knew if I stayed, eventually he would kill me. So you ran, Xavier said. I waited until he went to Las Cruces on business. He was supposed to be gone for 3 days. I packed a small bag, took what little money I could find, and left. I walked most of the way because I was afraid someone would remember me if I took the stage. I avoided towns where I could. I just kept moving, trying to put as much distance between us as possible. You did the right thing, Xavier said firmly. You did the only thing you could do. Catherine looked at him with gratitude and something else, something softer. You are a good man, Xavier Garrett. Your wife must have been very lucky. I was never married, Xavier said. Came close once back in Texas. But she decided she did not want to be married to a cowboy with more ambition than money. She married a banker instead. I am sorry. Xavier shrugged. It was a long time ago, and honestly, I think we both made the right choice. She would not have been happy out here, and I would not have been happy behind a desk in a city. Over the next few days, they fell into an easy routine. Xavier would do his morning chores while Catherine rested, then they would eat breakfast together. Catherine insisted on helping around the house despite her injured feet, so she took over the cooking and mending while Xavier worked the ranch. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch and talk as the sun set over the mountains. Xavier found himself looking forward to these conversations more than he cared to admit. Catherine was intelligent and well-read, with opinions on everything from politics to literature. She made him laugh with stories from her childhood, and she listened with genuine interest when he talked about his dreams for the ranch. Slowly, she began to relax around him, the constant fear fading from her eyes. On the 4th day, Xavier rode into Silver City for supplies. While he was there, he stopped by the office of Thomas Whitaker, a lawyer he had done business with in the past. Xavier, Thomas greeted him warmly. What brings you to town? I need some legal advice, Xavier said, closing the door behind him. Confidential legal advice. Thomas's expression grew serious. Of course. Sit down and tell me what is going on. Xavier explained the situation, leaving out some of the more personal details but making it clear that Catherine was fleeing an abusive husband and needed protection. Thomas listened carefully, taking notes. She has grounds for divorce, Thomas said finally. Abuse and abandonment would both be valid reasons. But the process takes time, and if her husband is as well connected as you say, he could make it difficult. What are her options? Well, first she would need to file for divorce. She could do it here in Silver City, but she would need to establish residency first. That usually means living in the area for at least 6 months. During that time, her husband would be notified of the proceedings, which means he would know where to find her. Xavier frowned. That is not ideal. No, it is not, Thomas agreed. The alternative is to wait and hope he does not find her. If she can stay hidden long enough, eventually he might give up the search. Or she could move somewhere far away, maybe California or even back east, and start over with a new name. She should not have to live in hiding, Xavier said firmly. She should not have to give up her name and her past because of what he did to her. Thomas gave him a knowing look. You care about her. I barely know her, Xavier protested. That does not answer my question. Xavier was quiet for a moment. She deserves better than what she has had. She deserves to feel safe. And you want to be the one to make her feel safe, Thomas said with a slight smile. There is another option, you know. If she were to remarry, her current husband would have no legal claim to her anymore. The new marriage would supersede the old one. We have only known each other for 4 days, Xavier said, though his heart beat faster at the suggestion. I am just laying out all the options, Thomas said mildly. Think about it. In the meantime, if she wants to pursue a divorce, have her come see me. We will figure something out. Xavier rode back to the ranch with his mind churning. Marriage to Catherine would solve her legal problems, but it seemed absurd to even consider it. They barely knew each other. The fact that he found himself thinking about it at all was troubling. When he arrived back at the ranch, he found Catherine in the kitchen, kneading bread dough. She had tied her hair back with a ribbon and she was humming softly to herself. She looked up and smiled when he entered, and Xavier felt something tighten in his chest. How was town? She asked. Fine, Xavier said, setting down the supplies. I spoke to a lawyer while I was there. About your situation. Catherine's hands stilled in the dough. What did he say? Xavier explained the options as Thomas had laid them out, carefully not mentioning the remarriage possibility. Catherine listened quietly, her expression growing more troubled. So I either hide for the rest of my life or spend 6 months waiting for Marcus to come and drag me back, she said flatly. Those are my choices. There might be other options, Xavier said carefully, but we do not have to decide anything right now. You are safe here and that is what matters. Catherine returned her attention to the dough, pounding it with more force than necessary. I hate this. I hate feeling helpless. I hate that he still controls my life even though I am not with him anymore. He does not control your life, Xavier said. You took your life back when you left him. Everything else is just details we need to work out. Catherine looked up at him with tears in her eyes. Why are you doing this? Why are you helping me so much? You do not owe me anything. Xavier crossed the kitchen to stand near her, careful not to crowd her. Maybe I am not doing it because I owe you. Maybe I am doing it because I want to. But why? Xavier considered his answer carefully. Because you deserve help. Because you remind me that there is still good in the world worth protecting. Because... He paused, struggling to put his feelings into words. Because I like having you here. I like talking to you. I like the sound of you humming while you make bread. I have been alone on this ranch for 5 years, and I thought I liked it that way. But then you showed up in my barn, and suddenly my house feels like a home instead of just a place I sleep." Catherine stared at him, her hands still buried in the dough. "Xavier, I am not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I am just being honest. You can stay here as long as you want, no strings attached, but I will not pretend that I do not care about you, because I do. More than I probably should after just a few days." Catherine slowly pulled her hands from the dough and wiped them on a towel. Then, moving carefully as though approaching a skittish horse, she stepped closer to Xavier. She reached up and touched his face, her fingers gentle against his jaw. "You are nothing like him," she said softly. "Nothing at all." "I should hope not," Xavier said, his voice rough. "When you touch me, I do not flinch anymore. Have you noticed that?" He had noticed, but he had not wanted to make too much of it. "I have tried to be careful. I know, and I appreciate it, but I do not want you to be careful anymore." She took another step closer until they were almost touching. "I like having you near me. I like the way you look at me like I am someone worth protecting. I like who I am when I am with you." "Catherine," Xavier said, his heart pounding, "you have been through a lot. You do not have to feel anything for me just because I helped you." "I know that," she said. "And if all I felt was gratitude, I would tell you. But it is not just gratitude, Xavier. It is something else, something I have never felt before. When I am with you, I feel safe. But more than that, I feel like myself. Does that make sense?" "Yes," Xavier said, because it made perfect sense to him. He felt the same way about her. Catherine rose up on her toes and kissed him, soft and tentative. Xavier froze for a moment, not wanting to do anything to scare her, but then he felt her smile against his lips and he relaxed. He wrapped his arms around her gently, giving her every opportunity to pull away, but she did not. Instead, she leaned into him, her hands moving up to rest on his shoulders. When they finally broke apart, Catherine was smiling, a real, genuine smile that transformed her face. "I was not sure if you wanted that." "I wanted that," Xavier assured her. "I have wanted that for days now." "Then why did you not say anything?" "Because I did not want you to think I expected something in return for helping you. I did not want you to feel pressured or obligated." Catherine's expression softened. "You really are nothing like him." They stood there in the kitchen for a long moment, just holding each other, and Xavier felt something settle in his chest. This was right. She was right. He had only known her for a few days, but somehow it felt like he had been waiting for her his whole life. Over the following weeks, their relationship deepened. Catherine's feet healed and she began helping more around the ranch. She turned out to be a natural with the horses, and she learned quickly how to care for the chickens and the vegetable garden Xavier had been neglecting. They worked together during the day and talked long into the night, sharing stories and dreams and fears. Xavier told her about growing up in Texas, the youngest of 4 boys, and how he had always felt the need to prove himself. He told her about losing his parents to a fever when he was 20, and how that loss had driven him to seek out a place where he could build something lasting. Catherine told him about her childhood in St. Louis, about her father teaching her to read and her mother teaching her to sew. She told him about the terror of losing both parents within days of each other, and the desperate choice she had made to marry Marcus. She told him things she had never told anyone, about the small cruelties and the large ones, about the fear that had become her constant companion. "I used to think I was weak for staying as long as I did," she admitted one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "I would lie awake at night and wonder why I could not just leave." "You were not weak," Xavier said firmly. "You were surviving. And when you finally had an opportunity to escape, you took it. That took incredible strength. I do not feel strong. I feel like I am barely holding myself together." Xavier reached over and took her hand. You walked for 3 days with bleeding feet to get away from a man who hurt you. You trusted a complete stranger to help you. You are rebuilding your life from nothing. If that is not strength, I do not know what is. Catherine squeezed his hand. I could not do any of this without you. Yes, you could, Xavier said, but I am glad you do not have to. One morning in early September, nearly a month after Catherine had arrived, Xavier woke to find her already up and making breakfast. She was wearing one of the dresses they had bought on their last trip to Silver City, a simple blue calico that fit her properly and made her green eyes even more striking. You are up early, he said, coming into the kitchen. I could not sleep, Catherine admitted. Xavier, I need to tell you something. The seriousness in her tone made Xavier's heart skip. What is it? I have been thinking about what the lawyer said, about my options. She took a deep breath. I do not want to spend 6 months waiting for Marcus to find me, and I do not want to spend the rest of my life hiding. But there is another option he mentioned, one you did not tell me about. Xavier felt heat rise to his face. Thomas talks too much. He mentioned that if I remarried, my first marriage would be superseded, Catherine continued. That Marcus would have no legal claim to me anymore. Catherine, let me finish, she said gently. I know we have only known each other for a month. I know this is fast, probably too fast. But I also know how I feel about you. I know that I am happier here with you than I have ever been anywhere else. I know that when I think about the future, I see you in it. She paused, gathering courage. I am not asking you to marry me out of some sense of obligation, or because it would solve my legal problems. I am telling you that I want to marry you because I love you. Xavier's heart felt like it might burst out of his chest. You love me. Yes, Catherine said simply. I love you. I have probably loved you since the night you found me in your barn and offered me kindness instead of judgment. I have definitely loved you since you knelt down and bandaged my feet without asking for anything in return. And I absolutely love you now, standing here in this kitchen, in this life we have been building together. Xavier crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. I love you too. I have been afraid to say it because I thought it was too soon, that you would think I was rushing you or taking advantage. But I do love you, Catherine. More than I thought it was possible to love anyone. Catherine kissed him, and this time there was no hesitation, no careful distance. She kissed him with all the love and hope and relief she felt, and Xavier kissed her back with everything he had. When they finally pulled apart, Xavier rested his forehead against hers. Will you marry me? Not because it solves a legal problem, but because I cannot imagine my life without you in it anymore. Yes, Catherine said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, I will marry you. They were married a week later at the church in Silver City, with Thomas Whitaker standing as witness and the minister's wife serving as Catherine's attendant. Catherine wore a new dress, pale green to match her eyes, and Xavier wore his best suit. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, and when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Xavier kissed his bride with joy and relief. They filed the marriage certificate that same afternoon with the county clerk, creating an official record that would protect Catherine from any claims Marcus might make. Thomas assured them that legally, Catherine was now Xavier Garrett, and her previous marriage was no longer valid. He might still come looking, Thomas warned. This does not mean he will just accept the situation. Let him come, Xavier said, his arm around Catherine's waist. She is my wife now, and I will protect her. They rode back to the ranch in the late afternoon sunlight, and Xavier helped Catherine down from the wagon with exaggerated care, making her laugh. I am married, not made of glass, she said. You are my wife, Xavier corrected, and I plan to treat you accordingly. He swept her up in his arms and carried her across the threshold of the ranch house, both of them laughing. Inside, he set her down gently and kissed her, and this time there was no holding back. They made their way to the bedroom, taking their time, learning each other with gentle hands and whispered endearments. Later, lying in bed with Catherine curled against his side, Xavier felt a peace he had never known before. This was what he had been missing all those years alone on the ranch. Not just a wife, but this particular woman with her courage and her kindness and her green eyes that seemed to see straight into his soul. "Are you happy?" Catherine asked softly. "Happier than I have ever been," Xavier said honestly. "You?" "I did not know it was possible to feel this happy," Catherine said. "I thought maybe I was broken, that I would never feel safe or loved again. But you proved me wrong." "You were never broken," Xavier said firmly. "You were just with the wrong person. Now you are with the right one." Catherine tilted her head up to kiss him. "Yes, I am." The next few months passed in a blur of contentment. Catherine threw herself into making the ranch a true home, planting a larger garden, fixing up the house, and learning the ins and outs of ranch management. She proved to have a good head for numbers and took over the accounting, discovering several ways to save money and increase efficiency. Xavier had never been happier. He loved coming in from a long day of work to find dinner waiting and Catherine ready to tell him about her day. He loved waking up with her beside him every morning, loved the sound of her singing while she worked, loved the way she laughed at his jokes even when they were not very funny. They made plans for the future. They wanted to expand the herd, maybe add some sheep. They talked about eventually hiring a few ranch hands as the operation grew, and they talked about children, both of them wanting a family. "I want at least 4, Catherine said one evening as they sat by the fire. "Maybe more." "4," Xavier said with mock horror. "Who is going to help me run this ranch with 4 children running around causing chaos?" "The children will help, obviously," Catherine said, grinning. "We will put them to work as soon as they can walk. You have thought this all through, I see." "I have had a lot of time to think about what I want from life," Catherine said more seriously. "And I want a family, a real family built on love and respect. I want our children to grow up feeling safe and valued. I want to give them everything I did not have." Xavier pulled her close. "Then that is exactly what we will do." In November, Catherine realized she was pregnant. She told Xavier over breakfast, unable to contain her excitement. "Are you sure?" Xavier asked, his face lighting up. "As sure as I can be," Catherine said. "I have missed my courses twice now, and I have been feeling sick in the mornings. I think we are going to have a baby." Xavier let out a whoop of joy and picked Catherine up, spinning her around the kitchen before carefully setting her down. "We are going to have a baby." "We are," Catherine confirmed, laughing at his excitement. "When?" "I think sometime in June or July. We will know more as time goes on." Xavier immediately became even more protective than he had been before. He insisted Catherine rest more, worried about her doing heavy work, and fretted over every little thing. Catherine found it endearing and exasperating in equal measure. "I am pregnant, not dying," she reminded him when he tried to stop her from carrying a basket of laundry. "Women have been having babies for thousands of years while still doing their work." "But you are carrying my baby," Xavier said. "That makes it different." Catherine just shook her head and kissed him. "I love you, but you need to relax. I promise I will be careful and ask for help if I need it." It was 3 weeks before Christmas when the trouble they had been half expecting finally arrived. Xavier was in the barn repairing a stall door when he heard the sound of horses approaching. He went to the barn door and saw 3 men riding up the path to the house. He recognized the man in the middle immediately from Catherine's description. Marcus Jensen. Xavier quickly made his way to the house, entering through the back door. Catherine was in the kitchen, and one look at his face told her something was wrong. "What is it?" Your former husband is here, Xavier said, reaching for the rifle he kept by the door. Stay inside. Catherine's face went white. Xavier, be careful. He is dangerous. So am I when someone threatens my wife, Xavier said grimly. He went out onto the front porch as the three men dismounted. Marcus was a large man, well-dressed, with cold eyes and a cruel mouth. The two men with him had the look of hired muscle. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Xavier asked politely, though his hand stayed near the rifle. "I am looking for my wife," Marcus said without preamble. "Catherine Jensen. I have been told she is here." "There is no one here by that name," Xavier said calmly. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Do not play games with me. I know she is here. A woman matching her description was seen in Silver City with you several times over the past few months." "The woman you are thinking of is my wife, Xavier Garrett," Xavier said, "and I would appreciate it if you would leave my property." "Your wife?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That is impossible. Catherine is married to me." "Not anymore," Xavier said. "She divorced you and she married me. It is all legal and filed with the county clerk if you want to check." "She cannot divorce me without my consent," Marcus said, his face reddening. "And I certainly did not give it." "She did not need your consent," Xavier said. "Not after what you did to her. Now, I am going to ask you one more time to leave my property." Marcus took a step forward. "I am not going anywhere without my wife." "She is not your wife," Xavier said, his voice hardening. "And you are not taking her anywhere. She is staying here with me." "We will see about that," Marcus said. He nodded to his two companions and they started toward the porch. Xavier raised the rifle. "I would not do that if I were you. This is my property and I have every right to defend it." The two men hesitated, looking to Marcus for guidance. Marcus's face was purple with rage now. "You cannot keep her from me," he said. "She belongs to me." "She belongs to herself," Xavier said, "and she chose to be with me. Accept it and move on." "I will see you ruined for this," Marcus threatened. "I have friends, connections. I will destroy you." "You can try," Xavier said calmly. "But I have friends too, and more importantly, I have the law on my side. Catherine is my wife now. You have no claim to her." The door behind Xavier opened and Catherine stepped out onto the porch. Xavier wanted to tell her to go back inside, but he knew she needed to face this. "Hello, Marcus," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "Xavier is telling you the truth. I divorced you and I married him. I am not coming back with you." Marcus stared at her with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "How dare you? After everything I have done for you, after I gave you a home and a name, this is how you repay me." "You gave me a prison," Catherine said, finding her courage. "You gave me fear and pain and a life where I had to walk on eggshells every single day. I do not owe you anything, Marcus. I owe myself a chance at happiness, and that is what I am taking." "You are making a mistake," Marcus said, his voice dropping to something quiet and dangerous. "You think this cowboy can protect you. You think you can just walk away from me." "I already have walked away," Catherine said. "And yes, I think he can protect me. More importantly, I do not need him to. I can protect myself." Marcus took another step forward and Xavier moved to stand between him and Catherine, the rifle pointed directly at Marcus's chest. "That is close enough," Xavier said. "Catherine has made her choice and you need to respect it. Go back to Santa Fe, Marcus. Find another woman to torment. This one is taken." For a long moment, Marcus looked like he might do something stupid. His hand twitched toward the gun at his hip, and Xavier saw the two hired men tense. But then Marcus seemed to realize he was outmatched. Even if he drew his gun, Xavier had the rifle trained on him and would shoot first. "This is not over," Marcus said finally. "You have not heard the last from me." "I think we have," Xavier said, "because if you come back here, I will have you arrested for trespassing." And if you try to hurt Catherine in any way, I will do a lot worse than call the law. Do we understand each other?" Marcus glared at him for another moment, then turned and stalked back to his horse. His two companions followed, and the three of them rode away in a cloud of dust. Xavier did not lower the rifle until they were completely out of sight. Then he turned to Catherine, who was shaking. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I think so," Catherine said. "I just cannot believe he found me." "Someone in town must have told him," Xavier said, "but it does not matter now. He knows you are married, and he knows you have protection. Hopefully that will be the end of it." Catherine moved into his arms, and Xavier held her tightly. "What if he comes back?" "Then we will deal with it," Xavier said. "Together, but I do not think he will. Men like that are bullies, and bullies usually back down when someone stands up to them." Xavier was right. They never heard from Marcus Jensen again. Thomas Whitaker made some discreet inquiries and learned that Marcus had returned to Santa Fe and was telling people his wife had died of a fever. Apparently, the humiliation of being left by his wife was too much for his pride to bear, so he had created a more acceptable fiction. "Good riddance," Catherine said when Thomas told them. "If pretending I am dead makes him leave us alone, then let him believe whatever he wants." As winter deepened and Catherine's pregnancy progressed, life on the ranch settled into a peaceful rhythm. They spent Christmas together, just the two of them, exchanging simple gifts and making plans for the baby. Catherine knitted blankets and tiny clothes while Xavier worked on building a cradle. In late January, they made a trip to Silver City to see the doctor, who confirmed that Catherine was healthy and the baby was developing well. While they were in town, they ran into Sarah Mitchell, who ran the general store and served on the town council. "Catherine," Sarah said warmly, "I have been meaning to talk to you. We are still looking for a school teacher for Silver City. Would you be interested?" Catherine glanced at Xavier, who nodded encouragingly. "I would love to," she said, "but I am going to have a baby in a few months, so I am not sure how practical it would be." "Oh, we can work around that," Sarah said. "Perhaps you could start after the baby is a few months old. The children really need proper education, and from what I hear, you are well qualified." "I would be honored," Catherine said, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. A job, a purpose, a place in this community. It was everything she had hoped for when she first fled Santa Fe. By the time spring arrived, Catherine was heavily pregnant and starting to feel uncomfortable. Xavier fussed over her constantly, which she found both touching and annoying. "I am fine," she kept telling him. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time." "But this is my baby," Xavier would respond. "And you are my wife. I am allowed to worry." Their son was born on a warm night in early July, after a long labor that left both Catherine and Xavier exhausted. But when the midwife placed the tiny, squalling bundle in Catherine's arms, all the pain and fear melted away. "He is perfect," Catherine whispered, tears streaming down her face. "He is," Xavier agreed, staring at his son in wonder. What should we name him? They had discussed names for months but had not been able to decide. Looking at their son now with his tiny fists and shock of dark hair, Catherine suddenly knew. "Matthew," she said. "Matthew James Garrett." "Matthew," Xavier repeated, testing the name. "I like it. Hello, Matthew. Welcome to the world, little man." Matthew proved to be a healthy, happy baby who rarely cried and seemed content as long as he could see or hear his parents. Catherine recovered quickly from the birth, and by August, she was back to her normal routines, though now with a baby on her hip or sleeping in a basket nearby. In September, Catherine started teaching at the Silver City School. She taught 3 days a week, with Xavier watching Matthew while she was gone. The children loved her, and she found immense satisfaction in teaching them to read and write and think for themselves. life fell into a happy pattern. The ranch prospered, and over the next few years, they were able to hire 2 permanent ranch hands, which eased Xavier's workload considerably. Catherine continued teaching, taking time off only when their second child, a daughter they named Emma Grace, was born in the spring of 1881. By 1883, they had 4 children. Matthew was 4, Emma was 2, and they had twin boys, Daniel and Samuel, who were 6 months old and already showing signs of being handfuls. The ranch house had been expanded to accommodate the growing family, and Catherine had finally convinced Xavier to build her the wraparound porch she had been dreaming about. One evening in late summer, after the children were all asleep, Catherine and Xavier sat on that porch watching the sunset, just as they had done countless times before. "You remember the night we met?" Catherine asked, her head resting on Xavier's shoulder. "How could I forget?" Xavier said. "You were sleeping in my barn, terrified and desperate, asking for just one night." "Just one night," Catherine repeated with a smile, "and you gave me a lifetime." "We gave each other a lifetime," Xavier corrected. "I was just existing before you came along. You taught me how to really live." Catherine turned to look at him. "I love you, Xavier Garrett, more than I ever thought it was possible to love anyone." "I love you too," Xavier said, kissing her gently, "and I will love you for the rest of my life." They sat there as the sun dipped below the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. From inside the house, they heard one of the twins start to cry, and Catherine stood with a sigh. "Duty calls," she said with a smile. "I will get him," Xavier said, standing as well. "You sit and enjoy the sunset." "Come with me," Catherine said, taking his hand. "We will get him together." And they did, because that was how they did everything now, together. As the years passed, their family continued to grow. They eventually had 6 children in total, adding another daughter, Lucy, in 1885, and their youngest, a son named Peter, in 1887. The ranch grew as well, becoming one of the most successful operations in the Silver City area. Matthew grew into a responsible young man who loved working the ranch with his father. Emma inherited her mother's love of teaching and books. The twins were wild and adventurous, but had good hearts. Lucy was quiet and thoughtful, always bringing home injured animals to nurse back to health. And Peter, the baby, was everyone's favorite, charming and sweet-natured. Catherine continued teaching for many years, shaping young minds and becoming a respected member of the Silver City community. She served on the town council and helped establish a library. Xavier became known throughout New Mexico territory for his fair dealing and good stock. They faced challenges over the years, as all families do. There were droughts and harsh winters, illnesses and injuries, moments of fear and sadness. But they faced everything together, their love for each other and their children keeping them strong. In the summer of 1895, 17 years after Catherine had first appeared in Xavier's barn, they celebrated their wedding anniversary with a party that included their children, grandchildren from Matthew and Emma, who had both married, friends from Silver City, and the ranch hands who had become like family over the years. "Speech," someone called out, and Xavier stood up with Catherine beside him. "I am not much for speeches," Xavier said, which got a laugh since everyone knew he was not a man of many words. "But I will say this. 17 years ago, I found a woman sleeping in my barn. She asked for one night, and I gave her forever. It is the best decision I ever made." "The best decision we ever made," Catherine corrected, smiling up at him. "Because we chose each other every single day, and I would choose you again and again." They kissed, and their children groaned good-naturedly while their friends cheered. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and the children were in bed, Catherine and Xavier returned to their favorite spot on the porch. It was the same porch where they had spent countless evenings over the years, talking and dreaming and watching the sunset. "You ever regret it?" Catherine asked. "Taking in a stranger who showed up in your barn?" "Never," Xavier said without hesitation. "You?" "Never," Catherine echoed. "You saved my life that night, Xavier. In every way a person can be saved." "You saved mine too," Xavier said. "I just did not know I needed saving until you came along." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars come out. The sounds of the ranch settled around them, the gentle lowing of cattle, the chirping of crickets, the distant call of a coyote. These were the sounds of home. "I was so scared that night," Catherine said softly. "I had no idea what would happen to me, if I would survive, if I would ever feel safe again. I certainly never imagined this. A home, a family, a life filled with love and laughter." "You were brave," Xavier said. "You are still brave. Every day you are brave." "I am brave because I have you beside me," Catherine said. "Because I know that no matter what happens, we will face it together." Xavier pulled her close. "Always together. That is the promise we made, and it is the promise I intend to keep for the rest of my life." As the years continued to pass, Xavier and Catherine grew old together on the ranch they had built. Their children grew up and started families of their own, though most stayed in the Silver City area, unable to imagine being far from the home and parents they loved. Matthew took over the day-to-day running of the ranch as Xavier grew older, though Xavier never fully retired. He could still be found most days checking on the cattle or repairing fences, even into his 60s. Catherine eventually stopped teaching at the school but continued to tutor children privately and remained active in the community. They became grandparents many times over, and then great-grandparents. Their house was always full of children and noise and life. Catherine would make cookies, and Xavier would tell stories about the old days, and their descendants would gather around them with love and respect. On a warm summer evening in 1908, 30 years after they first met, Xavier and Catherine sat on their porch as they had done thousands of times before. They were both in their 60s now, their hair gray, their faces lined with years of sun and laughter. But the love between them burned as bright as ever. "You know what I am grateful for?" Catherine asked. "What?" "That I trusted you that first night, that I asked for just one night and you gave me so much more." Xavier took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "I am grateful you showed up in my barn. I am grateful you were brave enough to leave the life that was hurting you. I am grateful for every single day we have had together. Even the hard days, especially the hard days," Xavier said, "because we faced them together and they made us stronger." Catherine leaned her head on his shoulder, just as she had done countless times over the past 3 decades. "I love you, Xavier Garrett, from that first night until my last breath. And I love you, Catherine Garrett, always and forever." They sat there as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant colors, just as it had on so many other evenings throughout their life together. The ranch stretched out before them, a testament to their hard work and dedication. Inside the house, they could hear their youngest grandson practicing his reading, his voice stumbling over the words but determined. This was their legacy. Not just the land or the cattle or the successful ranch, but the family they had built, the love they had shared, the lives they had touched. Catherine had come to Xavier's barn broken and afraid, asking for just one night of shelter. Xavier had given her that night, and then another, and then a lifetime of nights, until they added up to a love story that would be told by their descendants for generations to come. They had faced every challenge together and celebrated every triumph together. They had raised 6 children who grew into good, kind, successful adults. They had built not just a ranch but a home, a community, a family that would endure long after they were gone. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Catherine felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. She had escaped a life of fear and pain and found a life of love and joy. She had taken a desperate gamble, asking a stranger for one night of shelter, and he had given her everything. "What are you thinking about?" Xavier asked softly. "I am thinking about how lucky I am," Catherine said. "How blessed, how grateful." "Me too," Xavier said, squeezing her hand. They sat there in the gathering darkness, two people who had found each other against all odds and built a life together that was better than anything either of them could have imagined. The night Catherine appeared in Xavier's barn, desperate and afraid, had been the beginning of their story. But it was far from the end. Their story continued in their children and grandchildren, in the ranch that would be passed down through generations, in the love that had sustained them through 3 decades of joy and sorrow, triumph and challenge. Xavier and Catherine lived many more years together on their ranch, surrounded by the family they had created and the life they had built. When Xavier passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 72 in 1918, Catherine held his hand and whispered words of love. She followed him 2 years later, having lived a life that exceeded every dream she had dared to dream that night she collapsed in his barn. They were buried together on a hill overlooking the ranch, their gravestone simple but meaningful. It read, "Xavier and Catherine Garrett, together always." Their descendants continued to run the ranch for generations, each one hearing the story of how their great-great-grandparents met, how a desperate woman asked for one night and received a lifetime of love. The barn where Catherine had first slept was preserved and eventually turned into a family museum of sorts, filled with photos and mementos from Xavier and Catherine's life together. Children and grandchildren would visit and hear the story, learning about the power of kindness, the strength of love, and the courage it takes to start over. Catherine and Xavier's story became legend in Silver City, a reminder that sometimes the most desperate moments can lead to the most beautiful outcomes. That sometimes asking for help is the bravest thing you can do. That sometimes a chance encounter can change your entire life. Because one August night in 1878, a desperate woman stumbled into a barn and asked for just one night of shelter. And a kind man said yes, not knowing that one night would turn into forever, that helping a stranger would bring him the love of his life, that the frightened woman sleeping in his hay would become his partner, his love, his home. They had built a life together from nothing, turning fear into hope, desperation into joy, and one night into a lifetime of love that echoed through generations. And if you visited that ranch even now, more than a century later, you could still feel the love they had shared, still sense their presence in every corner of the land they had worked together, still hear the echoes of their laughter on the wind. It was a love story for the ages, a testament to the power of kindness and courage, a reminder that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. Catherine had asked for one night, and Xavier had given her forever. Together, they had created something beautiful, something lasting, something that proved love could triumph over fear, hope could overcome despair, and two broken people could come together to create something whole and perfect and eternal. Their story was complete, their ending happy, their legacy secure. From a desperate night in a barn to a lifetime of love on a ranch in New Mexico territory, from fear and uncertainty to joy and contentment, from strangers to soulmates, Catherine and Xavier had lived there happily ever after. And their love story would be told and retold, generation after generation, a beautiful reminder that sometimes all it takes is one night, One act of kindness, one moment of courage to change everything.